One night, the main character watched as a beautiful young girl descended against the backdrop of a shining moon. She said she came to repay him. After some time, a mustachioed man with huge luggage on his back and in his hands was running away from the growling bear with a cry full of fear. He blamed himself for being greedy and climbing the mountains. Suddenly his foot tripped on a stone and the man fell to the ground. There was horror in his eyes. The bear was ready to strike him with its huge paw with sharp claws. But suddenly, the beast was stopped by someone's hand. The bear frownsy staring at the man who was able to stop him. The main character stood in front of him. He covered the fallen man with himself, still holding the bear's paw. The young man asked if the man was okay. He looked up and saw a bear raising its free paw over the young man. The man warned him that the beast was about to attack at that same second. The hero knocked the bear to the ground. The man exclaimed that it was cool. He was glad that the young man was nearby and began to ask who he was. He suggested that the main character was a great adventurer, but the guy replied that this was not the case. The young man noticed the wound, and when the man said that, thanks to him, he escaped with just a scratch, he realized that the hero was not addressing him at all. But the young man examined the animal's body and determined that it had broken ribs and lungs. Because of this, the bear could easily fly into a rage. The man was outraged by what the hero was doing. He shouted that the bear was the servant of the demon lord, the enemy of all mankind. The main character said that he really is a monster, but now he is his patient. The young man spoke about the sword, and his palm took the shape of a sharp blade. He cut the beast's flesh with this blade to the surprised exclamation of the man. After that, the hero began to look for something with his hand in the bear's body. Soon he found and pulled out a fragment of a rib from the body. The guy apologized for being rude to the animal. He decided to leave the remaining wounds to heal themselves. The bear rose Saturday down and looked at the mustachioed man. He was afraid that the beast would kill him. The hero asked if the animal was okay. He looked at the backpack in the man's hands. The young man asked him if he had eggs that belonged to a bear. The man began to deny it. The main character realized that a rare bear with eggs was sitting next to him. He was angry at the man for taking his cubs. The bear took the eggs in his mouth and ran back where he came from. The young man waved after him. The man asked the hero if the bear followed him even when wounded because he wanted his children back. The guy replied that he didn't know that the man said that the young man had already guessed about stealing the eggs from the beast. The hero told him that animals also have feelings. He also said that if you listen carefully, you can hear the quiet voice of animals. After these words, the young man picked up the man and his things. He said that he needed to get around the area, so he decided to give the thief a ride to the base. The man asked who the young man was with such strength, healing arts, and understanding of monsters. The main character replied that he was a veterinarian, and his name was Zeke veterinary. Holding the thief in one hand in his backpack, and the other, Zeke quickly ran forward. On the tree he was running past, a small creature was sitting and looking after him. After some time, the main character found himself on a small farm. He spoke about recovery, placing his hand on the syringe. He then injected the medicine into the sick cow. She opened her eyes and after a moment stood firmly on her feet. The cow's owner and the little girl were happy about her recovery. While stroking the cow, the man thanked the doctor and said that he was indebted to him. Zeke replied that there was no need for gratitude. The girl asked her farmer father what kind of like was above the doctor. He said that Zeke is a special person and this is his skill. My daughter asked whether she would have such skills. The father replied that she could not do what the doctor was doing. Zeke winked and said that it doesn't matter whether you have a skill or not. The main thing is the desire to help. The owner of the farm told the doctor not to be modest because he was a wonderful specialist, perhaps even surpassing his father. But in Zeke's opinion, he and his father were not even close, since his parent was much better than him. It turned out that the young man's father had already died. The owner's daughter expressed her condolences. Zeke Saturday down and stroking the girls had replied that everything was fine since his father had passed away a long time ago. Now, after saving the cow, the protagonist expressed his concern in something else. He noticed that the stable was poorly ventilated. In addition, a large load blocked the air supply, so he recommended cleaning the room more often. He also suggested moving the little body, which was hunched over and haggard, to another place. Zeke took a handful of animal feed in his hand and asked the farmer how it was distributed. It seemed to the young man that the owner had added too much concentrate. The man confirmed his guess. Zeke said the cows are slow, panting, and overweight. He knew that everyone had their own orders from above and realized that those above them wanted the animals to get fat. He was clear about the farmer's reluctance to expose his family to problems. The man admitted that the doctor was right. He received the order in the last month and did not have time to fulfill it. The young man noted that this wasn't in the spirit of his superiors. Suddenly a sound came from the pocket of his robe. He took out a round object and looked at it. After that, Zeke put the round communication device to his ear. A loud scream from the person at the other end immediately came from it. He asked why the hero was delayed. The young man replied that he was conducting a routine inspection at the Eastern Ranch. He addressed his interlocutor to His Majesty. His Majesty was unhappy and shouted that a simple inspection of cattle takes 30 minutes. Zeke confirmed this, but explained that the inspection required too much effort. His interlocutor did not understand why waste time on this. The animals would be slaughtered for meat anyway. The doctor remained silent. His Majesty rudely demanded that he return quickly. The hero replied that he would come soon and drop the call. The girl, who heard the entire conversation, suggested that it was very difficult for the doctor to work. He replied that he was already used to this. The farmer also heard the recent conversation and was very indignant. He saw how hard Zeke worked, but the rich people and aristocrats didn't seem to care. The doctor was not surprised at how carelessly they treated animals. The rancher reported that under the new king, livestock farming in the country had declined, and there was only one veterinarian left. He considers the country lucky to have a doctor like Zeke, but he would like to see him leave and take his talent elsewhere. The main character said that he couldn't just leave them. The man said that staying here was a waste of time and asked him to think about himself. Zeke replied with a smile that he was glad to hear that the young man decided that now that the minister was furious, he had better leave. He promised to return and asked to take care of the animals. The farmer and his daughter wished the doctor to take care of himself. Zeke walked up to the horned dinosaur-like animal. He was wearing reins in the saddle. The hero asked about his readiness to go home, to which the beast growled and jumped up. The doctor asked what was wrong with him, to which he heard a growl again. The young man realized that the beast had received his call and thanked him. After some time, the dinosaur ran with Zeke on his back across a plain surrounded by mountains. The veterinarian wondered aloud about how he had considered leaving the country for a better opportunity, but he realized that he could not leave people like the man and his daughter whom he visited today. He concluded that living in this country is not so bad. The beast below him ground. Zeke as the dinosaur named Kai-Chen. What happened? It suddenly accelerated sharply, so the young man held onto it with all his might so as not to fall. The hero asked Kai-Chen to stop, because the capital was in the other direction. A moment later, the animal braked with its pulse as sharply as it had accelerated, before holding tightly to the dinosaur's reins. Zeke looked ahead to find a white, furry creature lying a few meters away from them. Without taking his eyes off the snow-white animal, the young man climbed off Kai-Chen's back. He assumed it was a dog taking her in his arms. He realized that she was wounded. The small dog did not move. Zeke thanked the dinosaur for paying attention to her. The vet found cuts and bruises on the motionless animal's body, but they were not anything serious. He apologized to the dog that it would hurt a little. He took blood from the dog's body with a syringe. The doctor then ran his fingers over the syringe, talking about medical examination. Thus, he found out that her blood contained toxins. This meant that the dog was attacked by ogres. The animal whines. Zeke consoled the dog, saying that it would be fine because it was a doctor. The dog barked questioningly. Looking at him, the young man closed his eyes, holding the ampoule in his hands. He told the dog that he would give it an injection, and it would feel better. He asked her not to move. The dog obeyed. The doctor stroked the dog's head and thought about how well-groomed and soft her fur was. She didn't look wild, and the hero wondered how she ended up in such a place. Suddenly, Kai-Chen growled. Zeke turned around and saw several huge ogres. Their leaders stood with a large club slung over his shoulder. The doctor realized that they were hunting for the dog, which was still lying in his arms. He asked the ogres why they were chasing her, since they had no intention of eating her, and suggested that they stop it. The young man managed to jump away before the ogre struck with all his strength his club at the place where he had stood a second before. He asked if the ogres were listening to him. Zeke flew up and kicked one of them so hard that it fell backwards to the ground. The rest of the ogres, seeing this, were left in confusion when the veterinarian touched the ground with his feet. He said that he did not want to hurt the ogres, if possible. At this, they growled loudly. Zeke realized that they had no intention of leaving peace, for the ogres ran towards Zeke in a crowd. But he, putting his hand out in front of him, cast the spell, and all the monsters suddenly frowned with confusion on their faces. The doctor then spoke a spell, pointing the fingers downwards. All the ogres began to lose consciousness and fell face down. Zeke noted that these two medical skills are useful for situations like this. Zeke coughed and became convinced that the dog was missing. He recalled that the monster seemed to be saying something. The dinosaur appeared nearby and licked the young man's cheek. The vet said the dog seemed to be doing better, so the details weren't important. The young man and Kai-Chen went home. Returning back, the main character immediately appeared before the king sitting on the throne. He confronted Zeke with the fact that he was fired. The doctor was at a loss. He asked why he was being fired. The king replied that the prime minister had reported to him that the veterinarian had incurred enormous expenses, far in excess of his needs. The prime minister confirmed this with gloating. He expressed that livestock are nothing more than animals that are bred, killed and eaten. In his opinion, anyone who spends so much money on their medical care does only harm, not good. He added that Zeke's justification is health and environmental. But if the animals die, a few cubs will be enough. The king confirmed the prime minister's words and asked if the doctor wanted to say something. Zeke asked the king for forgiveness. After that, he decided to speak out that livestock farming is not as simple as the minister said. Without competent management, productivity will not be stable or will completely disappear due to the spread of diseases. He added that he was responsible for managing the monster squads used by the national army, and special methods were needed to suppress the inherent ferocity of the hex and beasts, without which the country would suffer human casualties. In addition, the country will also suffer material damage. The prime minister told Zeke with a grin that a useful magical tool had recently been invented. He showed him a training tool that looks somewhat like a collar. The minister revealed that by wearing it, one could force pets and magical beasts to obey at will. While they had him, Zeke was useless. The doctor was outraged that they were treating animals like objects by using such an item. He argued that if they continue to trample on the feelings and dignity of animals, then one day a disaster will not be avoided. The minister laughed at the young man's words about the dignity and feelings of animals and suggested that he was delusional. The king called Zeke's argument stupid. He said the doctor deserved to be punished for all the harm he had caused to the country, as well as his many false claims to competence. But he recognized his work, so he promised to treat the vet with leniency. The king ordered Zeke to be deported. After some time, the young man sat on the riverbank and looked at the night landscape. He laid down on the ground and began to reflect on how he thought he had done his best to replace his father, but the world had gone crazy. When a new king took the throne, Jai-Chen came up to him and licked his face. The young man assumed that the beast was trying to console him. In this way, the hero sat down and said that animals are not things that can be thrown away. They are creatures with feelings and hearts that encourage their friends in difficult times. He patted Kai-Chen on the back in a friendly manner, and she responded by pushing the young man so much so that he fell from the shore into the water. The wet guy, laughing, acknowledged the victory of the beast still sitting in the water. He saw a bright light in the middle of the night sky. The young girl of fabulous beauty descended towards him. It seemed from the moon itself. Zeke looked at her with a fascinated gaze. The girl barely touched the water with her toes and opened her eyes. Looking at Zeke, she said that she missed him and that she owed him. The girl looked very happy when the girl said that her name was Tiffany. But as the main character took call her tea, the hero invited her to his home. She happily agreed. The young man told her his name, and you thought it was beautiful. Kai-Chen lay down to rest near the house. Inside the dwelling, there was a bed on which Zeke sat down. Tai sat on a chair opposite the doctor. The vet asked if she was the puppy he had rescued. The girl answered in the affirmative. Zeke noticed the ears and tail that remained even when she was in human form. He said she looked like a monster, but he was saving an ordinary puppy, not a girl like her. Suddenly, Tai was illuminated by light, so the hero had to close his eyes and turn away. She jumped up and screamed that it was not like that at all. A moment later, the puppy he had recently rescued was floating in the air in front of the young man. Tiffany asked if Zeke believed her now. He replied that it did. He asked if she was a monster. He had never heard of such a species that could turn into humans. Tai replied that she was certainly not a monster. The dog, hovering in the air, asked the young man a question if he knew about the gods of monsters. Zeke replied that he didn't know. Tai explained that these are monsters that have existed since ancient times and are equal to the gods, and the one who rules them is called the Divine Beast King. It turned out that Tiffany is the daughter of the Divine Beast King. She came to invite Zeke. The hero was perplexed. Tai explained that Narada is a land of water, greenery, and beasts ruled by a Divine Beast King. This land needs Zeke's loving hand, which he extended to the unknown monster he found along the way. The vet looked at his hand and said there was only so much he could do, but if he asked him for help, he would give it. He told her that he had recently been deported, so her offer was perfect. You were happy. Zeke raised his hand into a fist and spoke. Tai touched his fist with her paw. At Papa's heard, and the young man's body lit up. The dog turned into a girl again and declared that the contract was concluded. Tai told the hero that having entered into a pact with the divine beast would release his hidden power and gain even more power. The girl looked closely at the young man and said that if he had questions, he could ask them. Zeke understood everything and suggested getting ready to lay down on the doctor's bed and covering herself with a blanket, wished him good night. The young man was indignant that she lay on his bed. The girl asked if he wanted to sleep with her. Zeke looked at her in disbelief and went to bed with Kai-chan, who was curled up sleeping on the hay outside. The next day, the veterinarian came to visit a ranch with cows where he had been some time ago. He met the farmer, his daughter, and the cow he had saved. The doctor said he would miss them but couldn't stay in the country any longer. The farm owner called the people who deported Zeke stupid. He was sure that everything would be fine with the young man and asked him to take care of himself. The hero thanked him. Not far away, Kai-chan and Tai were talking to each other. The farmer noticed that the young man had good companions, so there was no need to worry. Zeke apologized for the noise they made when the hero expressed his readiness to move forward. He heard someone say that he was only friends with Zeke. He walked up to T and asked her what she said. The girl replied that it was nonsense. The doctor thought he heard another voice, but decided to ignore it, and the heroes set off on their journey. Zeke Saturday on Kai-chan's back, holding the reins, and Tai Saturday behind him. They rushed forward along the road. The young man looked at the map and said that it would be quite a long journey, because even with Kai-chan's legs, the journey would take about 5 days. T suggested making the trip fun. Kai-chan suddenly growled. Zeke asked what happened to him, why he was in a bad mood. Here the protagonist's gaze turned to the figure sitting on the ground. He thought it was a wounded man, but Tai warned him that it was a harpy. The harpy had wings like arms and large claws growing on its paws. Tai said that it was a ferocious monster of Rankei. She did not understand how the harpy got to this place. The girl said they should go around her, but Zeke disagreed. The young man stopped Kai-chan and quickly got off, for Tai didn't understand why he did this. He ran up to the wounded harpy and said that a lot of wounded monsters had appeared lately. The harpy was trembling in pain. He asked Zeke to be careful. He wanted to examine the harpy because she was in pain, but she took off sharply when he came closer. The harpy was pulled down and fell to the ground. Zeke picked her up, touched her forehead with his finger, and cast the spell. After that, she fell asleep. T was amazed at what she saw championing of the sleeping harpy. The veterinarian said that everything would be fine. T asked why he was treating her. He replied that it was because he was a doctor. Moreover, he added that the monsters only went crazy because of the demon lord's curse. It was not their fault. Tai began to shake the young man by the shoulders and say that this was the Zeke whom she had always admired, and if this was so, the harpy would be struck down on the spot. The doctor asked not to talk nonsense. He reminded her that monsters were cursed and could not be easily tamed. T noted that the veterinarian took care of them in the kingdom. Zeke said it was a long process. It took a long time to break the curse, but that moment, the young man felt something touching his head. As it turned out, the harpy had already woken up and was now hugging the doctor from behind. She admitted that she loved Zeke. The hero did not expect such behavior from her and was a little surprised. Now Zeke, Tai, and the three of the harpy were sitting on the back of Kai-chan running along the road. Tai was encouraged that the veterinarian was able to easily deal with the high-ranking monster, but he didn't even remember having such strength. Tai didn't think that the young man's strength could develop so much thanks to the contract. This brought up Zeke's memories of the contract the previous evening. The hero looked at the harpy, who was constantly talking about her love for him, and asked Tai why this girl was also talking. Tai replied that his abilities had developed so much that he could understand the language of the harpies. Zeke was a little disappointed because it was all part of the deal, and not because of his talents, as Tia claimed. The harpy continued to hug the doctor and talk about how much he loved him. He also told Zeke that she liked him and hugged him. Kai-chan's gaze was gloomy all this time. Suddenly, she jumped up sharply and called Zeke stupid. Speeding up, she continued to call the doctor names. It turned out that Kai-chan had been in love with a young man all this time, and he didn't even notice her. Zeke was amazed that she could talk, but in the end, she was also a monster. That was not surprising. Kai-chan accused the young man of lying to her because he so easily hugged other girls. She asked if he really liked mammals that much. When Tai pressed herself closer to Zeke, and he asked her not to complicate the situation, the hero answered Kai-chan that she misunderstood everything because he had long believed that she was the best. Kai-chan suddenly braked and laughing contentedly licked Zeke's cheek. The harpy said again that she loved him. To the young man never thought that the day would come when he would be able to talk to Kai-chan like that. After some time, Tai informed everyone that they had already arrived. Zeke asked her not to say anything stupid. He believed that they needed to travel for a few more days. But as it turned out, they were already near the entrance to Narrow Dogma at the Makueni Gate. Tai noticed that with their fast legs, they made it in time. At this time, a harpy was flying nearby and humming something when the company entered the city. The residents were glad to have Tai back. She greeted everyone cheerfully. Residents asked her how things were going in the outside world. Zeke had doubts before, but now he was convinced that Tai was a princess. The girl notified the residents that she had reaped an excellent harvest in the outside world. With her arms outstretched, she introduced them to the human doctor. The vet said his name was Zeke Federal and he was glad to meet you. The residents looked at him with appraising glances. Then they started talking about how they had never seen humans. Before that he was the same benefactor that the divine beast had told them about, and that there was a monster with him. Zeke thought he said something wrong, but he calmed him down. She said the residents were a little confused because they were not used to people. The main character read that once upon a time, the beast people were persecuted by people and ended up in a deep forest. So he was not surprised that their reaction. One of the guards asked Tiffany and company to come with them. All this time, the beast people did not take their eyes off the arriving guests to apologize in advance for their reaction. Zeke said it was okay. It was a natural reaction to a stranger. Suddenly someone called out to Mrs. T. She and Zeke turned around and saw a girl holding an apple in her hands. She invited me to try this delicious apple. So you wanted to take it? Zeke noted that it actually looked delicious. The girl said that she had a store with apples and if he wanted to try them too, he could come in. The girl and T ran to the store and Zeke asked them to wait for him. The heroes ran without looking around and were almost run over by a horse pulling a cart. The coachman could not slow down, but Kai-chan picked up the girl and Zeke covered Tai with himself. The horse could not calm down and the veterinarian had to jump up with Tai in his arms and put him to sleep using his magical abilities. After that, he sank to the ground. Zeke asked T if she was okay. Everything was fine with the girl. She thanked him for saving her. The doctor noticed that the girl Kai-chan saved was also fine. She asked if her mistress was hurt. T replied that she was fine. The guard ran up to the place where the collision almost happened and shouted at the coachman. Why was it trying to run over the divine beast? He ordered the coachman to be taken to the castle to suffer capital punishment along with his horse. Zeke asked to wait. The guard saw the young man approach the horse and look at his hoof. The doctor realized that it was stretched and inflamed. He asked the coachman whether he trimmed the horse's hoof regularly. Zeke was indignant because walking on the cobblestones in this state was like stepping on shards of glass with your bare feet. The coachman apologized. The veterinarian created medicine for the horse using his abilities and handed it to the coachman. At the same time, he said that he had given the animal first aid. It would be fine all the way home and ordered the coachman to take care of it. He took the medicine. Zeke asked the guard to change his anger to mercy. Since this situation was not intentional, Tai supported the young men, being sure that the coachman would not allow this to happen again. The guard listened to their words. Zeke patted the girl on the head who almost got hurt and said that she shouldn't have jumped out so suddenly. She immediately apologized suddenly. The Beastmen who witnessed the incident clapped their hands. They surrounded the heroes and began to scatter their gratitude to Zeke for putting the horse on his feet. The coachman expressed gratitude to the doctor for saving his horse and himself. The guard admitted that he was in shock and thanked Zeke for resolving the situation. The girl also thanked him. T was glad to hear that the residents approved of Zeke. She hoped that they would get to know each other better and become friends. The hero wanted this. Kai-chan was unhappy about this. She grabbed the young man by the scruff of the neck with her teeth and threw him up, saying that Zeke belonged only to her. Sometime later, the friends arrived at a large palace surrounded by trees. Zeke and Kai-chan couldn't take their eyes off him in amazement. Tai interrupted their admiration of the palace, urging them to quickly go inside. Upon entering the palace, the princess ordered the servants to treat Zeke politely since he was an important guest. The maids did not dare disobey the order. One of the servants invited the heroes into the hall and said that if they needed anything they could ask her. Zeke sat her down on the sofa in the center of the room. Kai-chan settled down on the floor nearby. The young man was excited that Tai really turned out to be a princess. Kai-chan shared his feelings. Zeke reflected on the events that had taken him by surprise. He believed that things were getting very serious with this situation, and if T approved of him, He wondered what the rest of her family would think. The young man believed that he was terrible in everything except medicine, but Kai-chan disagreed. She thought Zeke was experienced, caring, and cool. She said he would be welcome anywhere, and even though she didn't like Kai, she saw in him what Kai-chan saw. The doctor thanked Kai-chan for her kind words. He was glad that she thought so and was happy to talk to her. She smiled well. Zeke stroked her muzzle. The hero rushed the Kai-chan with hugs, asking whether such friendship is called interracial. He once again said how glad he was to have Kai-chan. Kai-chan's gaze saddened. Suddenly, screams asking for help were heard from somewhere. The heroes were wary. Zeke used his detection skill and saw two men 2 rooms away climbing through the window with a large package. He guessed what was happening. The young man abruptly moved towards what was happening, calling Kai-chan with him. Having opened the doors to the room, Zeke discovered that near the window, 2 people wearing masks on their faces were trying to steal a girl with long hair. Zeke asked if they were kidnappers by surprise, holding a long-haired girl in a bag and about to climb out of the window. Zeke asked who they were. The man asked a counter question. The kidnappers used stealth, but Zeke saw them. The doctor said he discovered them by tracking them. The men were surprised by the ranger's strong skills. Zeke corrected them that it was a medical skill. One kidnapper whispered something into the other's ear. He realized that Zeke was the same guest with the monster. The hero suggested that the guys come up with something less extreme if they want to invite a girl on a date, because their method will only steer her away. One of the kidnappers attacked Zeke, but he managed to use the paralysis skill, touching the man's back. The second kidnapper was surprised by the young man's combat magic skills. Zeke wanted to say that this was not combat magic, but he changed his mind. The kidnapper, who had not yet felt the veterinarian's powers, tried to escape through the window. Holding the girl with one hand, Zeke immediately ordered him to stand when the criminal grabbed the window frame with his free hand. Kai-chan pushed him out with his whole body. The doctor managed to catch the girl, who was falling along with the kidnapper. The criminal hit the stone-paved ground hard when Zeke, holding the bound girl in his arms, landed softly. The hero asked the girl if she was hurt, but she could not answer because her mouth was gagged. At this time, Kai-chan crushed the criminal with her paw to the ground, so that he let out a strangled wheeze. Zeke approached the kidnapper and wanted to look at his face without a mask. The man laughed and the bright light flashed on his hand. The young man picked up the girl and ordered Kai-chan to leave. At that moment, an explosion occurred at the place where the kidnapper was lying. The vet realized that this was transference magic, a high skill with a limited number of users. He couldn't believe that such an ability could be used by a petty thief. He didn't understand what it all meant. The girl in his arms tried to say something, but could only hum. Zeke released her from the ropes. Then the young man untied the scarf that covered her mouth. He apologized for not removing the rope immediately and asked if she was okay. She responded positively and thanks. Zeke, the doctor asked in surprise how she knew his name. The girl turned out to be his employer. Zeke was extremely surprised by what he heard. The girl told him that she was the divine queen of beasts. She thanked the doctor for saving her life. After some time, Zeke came to the main hall of the royal palace. The queen sat on the throne, and Tai stood next to her. The divine queen of beasts informed the youth that he had been accepted. After that, she told him her name. Her name was Sophia. Zeke also introduced himself to her and apologized for being rude to her last night. The queen said that Zeke shouldn't speak so formally. Tai agreed with this because they were friends. The queen asked Tiffany not to go to extremes. The beast queen cleared her throat and said that they had a lot to discuss, but she would still keep it short. This time, she wanted Zeke to serve her country as the court's chief physician. The doctor was ready to obey her orders, but then he realized what the queen had said. The court's chief doctor is the head of the medical department, and Zeke only recently arrived to them. At the entrance to the hall, the voice of a guard was heard persuading Master Aroma to wait while Her Majesty held an audience. Despite the persuasion, a tall man in a fancy coat appeared in the hall and asked for forgiveness for interrupting the audience. As the man approached, for Zeke was standing. The young man pulled back and pulled Tai aside to ask her who it was. The princess replied that this was Mr. Oroa, the greatest of doctors. The hero realized that this man was the chief physician and looked at him, turning his gaze to the young man. Zero chuckled displeased. Zeke was thinking about something. The queen asked what the role wanted. He said that as the chief doctor of the yard, he cannot ignore the current situation. In his opinion, giving an important post to a stranger who has just arrived is simply madness. The guard asked the gentleman not to be rude, but Queen Sophia said that everything was fine. She noticed that the chief physician's words made sense, so she decided to consider Zeke for the position of his assistant servo, and did not want the young man to become his assistant. He expressed doubts that such an ugly bald man could occupy such an important position, no matter who supported him. He believed that Zeke might be a spy from another country. The main character understood that this gentleman was humiliating him. Zeke took notice of his physique and noticed that something was wrong with the center of gravity in the man's physique. The young man asked her, if he could look at his right hand. The head doctor did not understand why he had to show her. Zeke explained that his arm had a jerky movement, which meant he was injured. So Zeke wanted to examine his hand. Zero refused because he, as the chief doctor of the court, could take care of such a cut himself. The main character said that he inflicted exactly the same cut on the bandit last evening with his scalpel. He took out a set of scalpels and showed them to everyone present. Mr. Zero was shocked. The royal guards did not understand which bandits they were talking about. The queen explained that she kept silent about what happened so as not to cause confusion. She talked about how there was a bandit in her bedroom last night. She was in danger, but Zeke saved her. The guards were horrified by what they heard. They asked if Master Enro was really the bandit. The chief doctor said that this was all nonsense. This could not happen. He justified himself by saying that the scar, similar to a bandit's wound, did not prove anything. That's why Zeke wanted to take some of Master Enro's blood to see if his blood matched the one left on the scalpel. While the young man was speaking, he used the checking skill. The guards asked if it was really possible to test the blood. Zarello was clearly scared. The queen asked him to follow the doctor's instructions. So they suddenly rushed towards the queen with a knife and shouted that he would not do this. Zeke managed to stop him with the help of his paralysis skill before he harmed the queen. So Rosa opened his mouth in an attempt to say something, but was immobilized. He fell to the floor, and the main character commented on what happened, saying that formalities are of no use when it comes to bad guys. Queen Sophia thanks Zeke for saving her again. T was delighted with what she saw. She hugged him and said that she was proud of Zeke because he came to the castle and immediately exposed the bad guys and beat them. The young man asked to unhook from him. The queen smiled as she looked at them. Zeke asked Her Majesty for forgiveness, but for her it was nothing. Tai still hugged the hero. Sometime later, Zeke found himself in the hospital ward, accompanied by a girl with bunny ears. He was surprised to see many of the country's court doctors there from the second floor. He saw how each doctor went about his business. The escort explained the doctors are responsible for medical care for the people as well as livestock. Zeke remembered that he used to work alone. The girl told the young man that he had been appointed to lead them and asked him to introduce himself. Zeke cleared his throat, stepped forward, and introduced himself as the new chief physician of the court. Zeke veterinary. He said that perhaps some of the doctors did not like that he was an outsider, but had promised to do everything possible to join the team. He also promised to help if they had any problems and bowed. The young man thought to himself that his greeting was pitiful, and he should have come up with something smarter. However, he remembered that yesterday he did not have time for this. A moment later, he heard the sound of applause. The hero raised his head and was amazed at the doctor's reaction. They clapped their hands, said that they were pleased to meet him and that they were waiting for someone like him. Zeke was pleasantly surprised by the hospitality of the doctors. The girl with the rabbit ears said that they had already heard about the doctor's exploits, how he saved the princess and the divine queen of beasts. Everyone knew about what happened in the city. The girl noted that Zeke's predecessor was the same. The young man realized that Servo was not always evil. The girl asked Zeke not to worry about anything and promised that the doctors would do everything possible to support him. Before the hero could begin to get comfortable in this place, suddenly, someone ran into the hall and shouted that something was wrong. Zeke asked what happened, and the man running and told him in those present to see it with their own eyes in the sky. A whole flock of demonic monsters was flying straight towards them. Zeke and the others went outside to see them. Everyone was amazed because they had never seen so many dragons in one place. Zeke realized that things weren't quite what the others thought. Clusters that looked like dragons flew up to Zeke and the Beastmen. Standing nearby, one of the dragons called the young man brother, and he asked why the monsters flew to this place. They seemed to know each other well. One of the monsters replied that they heard that Zeke had left, so they were looking for him. The second monster said he didn't want to work without him. The doctor was surprised that they also knew how to talk. He is still not fully accustomed to his developed ability. The girl wanted to ask Zeke about these dragons, but he, anticipating her questions, said that he looked after them in his homeland. He wanted to take them under his wing if no one objected. The veterinarian said that they were excellent flying dragons for riding, and he was sure that they would be useful in air travel. The girl, inspired, agreed to accept the dragons. Meanwhile, in Zeke's former country, the king was trying on his new crown. He admired his reflection in the mirror and asked the prime minister what he thought of his crown. The minister wanted the greatness of the king to be known in all corners of the earth. The king noted that the decision to create such a magnificent crown was much more profitable than spending money on animals. He was sure that when peace people saw her, they would be delighted. Then he noticed that it was already late and they had to go ask the guard if the flying dragon was ready. The guard hesitated. After the guard described the entire situation, the king was furious that there were not a single flying dragon left. The minister and the king came to the dragon den to see for themselves. The guard said that the dragons disappeared in the morning, and the guards were looking for them everywhere. The king called them stupid and said that he could not go to the meeting without the dragon. He turned around and told the guard that they had no choice but to take the horses and carriage. When the king turned back, he was suddenly hit in the face with a hoof. The king fell to the ground, and the minister tried to understand whether he was seriously injured. The guard asked the king for forgiveness, trying to pacify the raging horse, and said that other horses were just as disobedient. The horse thought that as soon as Zeke left, they weren't fed or cleaned at all, and it couldn't work like that. The guard said that in this condition, it was impossible not only to harness the horses, but also to saddle them. The king asked what they should do. The prime minister said that in this case, they had no choice but to simply take a horse-drawn carriage. The king was unhappy at the prospect of running alongside as a servant. The minister asked him not to worry and said that they would think of something. In the end, the king said that he didn't care about everything. They had to go. The prime minister again tried to calm him down. There was a harpy floating somewhere in the sky. At this time, the king, out of breath after a hard journey, opened the doors of the estate and apologized for being late. The people sitting at the table greeted King Mogul of Gidan Ioyug. They reproached him for being late. He began to make excuses to them that he had problems. The high-ranking gentleman said that they had already discussed most of the agenda, that they would write about him at the end of the minutes, that he graciously reported on his readiness to perform his duties. They began to mock him. The people in the hall continued to laugh loudly. The king was furious. He was very angry because, in his opinion, all this was happening because of Zeke. At this time, Zeke and Kai Chan arrived at their new home, which was provided to them by Sophia. The house looked quite large, so there was more than enough space. Kai Chan said that she was happy. The vet said that he contacted Mint. Surprising Kai Chan, it turned out that he wrote her a letter and sent it by owl. He said that no matter how much she hated him, she was still his sister and should at least know what was going on with Zeke. He then suggested that Kai Chan do the cleaning. The owl brought a letter to a girl standing at the open window. She had a feeling they were in for trouble. A long-haired girl in elegant clothes looked after the retreating owl and said to her brother to wait a little and soon she would come to him. The footsteps on the new crown with all its strength, so much so that it bent and precious stones scattered from it in all directions. King Raquel was furious at being humiliated in front of important people. He blamed Zeke for losing face and scolded him while continuing to kick the crown. The minister, observing what was happening, asked him to calm down. His Majesty turned around irritably and pointed his finger at him. He blamed Prime Minister Haman for not making a good offer. As Haman was about to answer him, a guard approached them and apologized for interrupting. The king asked what happened. The guard said that Miss Mint was waiting to meet him. The king asked who Mint was. The minister said that he had already told him about her. This is the genius whom they hired as a court magician in Veterinary Rock. I'll remember this girl. Haman said that she was only 15 years old, but she had already graduated from the Magic Academy with honors. He noted that such talent appears once in a century. She is truly a brilliant magician. The minister was curious as to why such a distinguished personality would apply for an open competition. The king confidently stated that this was because of his popularity. The prime minister agreed with this and added that other countries would certainly pay attention to their country. At that moment, an unusually beautiful girl in an elegant robe with a pretty face entered the hall. His Majesty realized that it was Mrs. Mint and greeted her. The king said that he liked the fact that she came to honor him even before she officially received the position. Mint made it clear that this was not what she had come for. She walked past the king and, leaving the hall, said goodbye. Came and asked her to wait and explain what she meant. He tried to stop her by touching her shoulder with his hand. Suddenly, the minister's hand became covered with a layer of ice, and he screamed loudly. He fell to the floor. The king looked at him in fear. The girl said that Haman should not dare touch her. The only one who was allowed to do this was her brother. The king asked her in surprise about her brother. She explained that her brother was a veterinarian whom they had banished from the country, and he was the one who took care of the animals. It only now dawned on Rod that Met was Zeke's sister. The girl said that she just wanted to work in the same place as her brother and if he was not in this country, she had nothing to do here. As men left, she wished the king good luck. His Majesty asked her to wait because for the sake of the prestige of the country, they needed her help. The girl said that she did not understand what he was talking about and disappeared into thin air, leaving behind only a flash of light. The minister was still lying on the floor with his hand frowning. The angry king fell to his knees. He again began to scold Zeke and his family at the top of his voice. Meanwhile, Min, sitting on a broom, was already flying towards her dear brother. She really wanted to see him. Suddenly, the girl's broom bumped into something in the air. Stretching out her hand to the invisible barrier meant assumed that it was a barrier. At this time, two guards who were below the city gate saw girls soaring in the sky. They didn't understand if it was a person. Suddenly, the girl jumped down from the broom and asked the guards to let her through. They were perplexed by her request. A threatening aura appeared around Mint, and she again demanded to be let through as she wanted to see her brother. The guards were amazed to see her magic man cast a spell and raised her hand, on which a bright light appeared. Before the girl could use her magic, someone's hand stopped her, and the voice of this person told her to stop. Min didn't expect this at all. She turned around and saw that Zeke had stopped her. The girl was very happy to see her brother. Min said she missed him very much. The young man asked what she was doing in this place, because she was supposed to be studying. The sister told the hero that she had already graduated from school C, concluded that she would now have a job. The girl told her brother that she had recently quit her job as a court magician. Zeke was shocked by the news. He asked Mint why she did this, because he came all this way to get her into a prestigious place. The sister replied that all she needed was Zeke. The hero was surprised by the changes in the girl's character. Previously, she kicked Zeke out, said that she was tired of him and was dissatisfied with everything. When the young man remembered this, man blushed. Kai-chan intervened in the conversation. She said that Man's personality changed when she became old enough. Before that, she had a simple, childlike innocence. The girl got angry and called Kai-chan a lizard to confess to his sister that he thought she hated him, and to apologize for not saying it earlier. When Zeke left the country, she realized that if she was not honest, she might remain misunderstood for the rest of her life. The girl said that from now on and forever she loves her brother. Zeke replied that he loved her to me and asked him again if they really loved each other. Kai-chan butted into their conversation, trying to convince me that Zeke only loved her. The girl argued with the lizard, reminding her that her brother had just talked about loving Mint. Zeke felt uncomfortable with their argument. The hero invited them to go home and apologize to the guards. They said it was okay if it was his sister. Zeke invited his sister to stop by his house. The girl agreed and said that she would be a guest in this country. The young man, Kai-chan, and the guards looked at her strangely, finding themselves at Zeke's house some time later. The hero sat her down to drink tea. The veterinarian was glad that Lady Sophia agreed to let men stay in their country. Zeke said his sister didn't have to stay at his house. They noted that there is nothing strange about a brother and sister living under the same roof. Zeke said that she is now her own person. The sister hugged her brother's hand and inhaled his scent, saying that she had not done this for a long time. She added that she loved Zeke. The hero thought that she still needed him. Suddenly, the magical light in the room went out. Min asked if his magic had run out. Zeke replied that apparently not. Many elongated shadows with glowing eyes appeared in the darkness. Zeke asked if the shadows were monsters. Min replied that it was like a shadow puppet skill. She warned that they were unaffected by physical attack, sleep, and paralysis. The hero decided that he needed to defeat the magician who used this skill. Min agreed with his decision. All the shadows suddenly rushed at Zeke, but the young man managed to bend down and disperse them. Zeke was happy with his job. His sister said he was cool. Suddenly, a voice was heard from somewhere. He asked how Zeke did it, because neither blows nor magic affected his shadow doll. The veterinarian replied that he simply sewed the dolls up using sewing thread. The voice said that he could create an infinite number of shadow puppets, fill the room with them, and destroy Mint and Zeke. The hero used the paralysis skill on one of the shadow dolls. The man sitting inside the doll asked how the young man knew about telepathic speech, because it was perfectly disguised. Zeke said that if he was going to hide in the doll, he had to hide the heartbeat to the man, called the young man stupid. Sometime later, the magician was sitting by a tree with his hands tied. He had almost no clothes on. Zeke asked who it was. Min was sure that he would confess himself. The girl walked closer to the man and used brainwashing magic. She said that now he has become her humble servant and will answer any questions without any lies. Zeke thought it was creepy. Mentored the man to answer why he attacked her brother. He said the king and prime minister ordered him to kill Zeke. The young man was amazed at what was said. He asked if it were the king and the minister who drove him out of the country. The man said it was them. Zeke reasoned that expulsion was one thing, but murder could not be justified. He asked him if he had done something wrong. The gloomy sister said that this was unforgivable and disappeared with a flash. Zeke wondered where she went. Meanwhile, in the palace, King Rogale was trying to figure out how he could get men back. The prime minister had told him that given the way they dealt with Zeke, his sister was unlikely to agree to return. The king began to accuse them, and instead of taking Zeke's side, he said that he meant that they would have to make some concessions to get men back. Rog realized that they needed to show that they were ready to take Zeke and his sister back. He decided that then at the first opportunity, they would hire an assassin and kill him. The minister approached the king for thinking negatively. His Majesty did not think so. Still, Haman thought that sending an assassin was a pretty good idea since he had already sent one. Behind the minister, a woman's silhouette appeared in the air. She was floating in the middle of the room. The two presidents did not expect her appearance. The minister tried to get out of it and lied that the killer was already in the palace. When they kicked Zeke out, the king confirmed his words. Man didn't believe them. She reported that the one they sent, despite all efforts, failed. The king began to lament, justifying himself by saying that he had made a mistake, and the minister promised that this would not happen again. The girl chuckled. She said that the two were irredeemable and that they would pay for what they did to her brother. The king and the minister asked her to wait and ask what she needed. They were ready to give her land, money, and everything she asked for. Mim raised her hands above her head and used her absolute zero magic ability. At this moment, her hand emitted a bright light. Then she cast a spell, and a huge block of ice fell on the palace. Rogale and Haman sank to the floor and could not recover from fear. Men said she wouldn't take their lives for her brother's sake, but if they came for Zeke again, they would be finished. Immediately after this, the girl disappeared. The minister asked the king how he liked the new decoration of the palace. The king shouted that he was tired of everything. Sometime later, Zeke was taking a bath that his home meant. Having arrived back, could not find him in cold until he responded. The young man called her to him. The girl asked what kind of place this was. Zeke replied that it was an open-air bathhouse that he built as a hobby. There was a lot of steam out of the surface of the water. Zeke admitted that even though his schedule isn't as busy as before, he still gets tired. The girl sat her down next to her brother, then took some water into her palm and said it was divine. Zeke asked what divine energy was. Suddenly T jumped out of nowhere and announced that she was also going to take a bath. She fell into the water with a splash. The girl's body was not covered with anything. She apologized for the trouble. T said she enjoyed spending time with Zeke. Man looked at her darkly. A little later, Sister Isaac changed clothes and also decided to take a bath. She greeted Tiffany and said that she heard how she helped her brother. Mens looked at T coldly. Tiffany said that she had heard about Mint and that she was glad to meet her Zeke's sister. The young man caught the tense atmosphere that arose between the girls. At this time, Sophia and Kai Chen approached the bathhouse. The queen admired the wonderful resort, and Kai Chen noticed that her beloved Zeke was relaxing in the bath. The hero asked everyone to slow down. Kai Chen thought Zeke was terrible because he loved breasts. Sophia wanted to keep him company. Then the dragons came, expressing a desire to wash the young man's back. The girl with rabbit ears asked about his plans for the next week, and the harpy that Zeke saved some time ago. Now, as a crowd of people, Beastmen and monsters Saturday in the bath, the doctor asked what it all meant. T said it was great when Beastmen, humans, and monsters all enjoyed a bath together. She wished they could laugh like that with everyone in the world. Zeke agreed with the girl and said that this won't happen as long as the Demon Lord is around. She said that although Zeke is the dragons under control, the curse of the Demon Lord has not gone away, and as long as he exists, there will be no end to conflicts. Her brother agreed with the Zeke suggested to the Demon Lord that they take a bath together and get to know each other better. Men said that was impossible. A dark-haired girl with horns on her head peeked out from behind a tree in the forest. She asked what it was. While the ice that covered the king's castle still had not melted, one of the guards informed the minister that the guards had attracted all the magicians. But this was not easy. When it came to magic of such a high level, Haman ordered everything to be completed by the end of the week. He added that they were lucky because there were no casualties, but nearby facilities were badly damaged, so they would have to draw up a special budget for them. Scattering curses, the king entered the hall. The minister said that His Majesty came just in time. Haman told him that he had an estimate for repairs to the castle and its surroundings. The king ordered him to be silent because he was busy. Rockdale said that he had to beat Zeke well, otherwise he would be sick. He promised to kill him. The minister asked the king to pay attention to the problems with the castle. His Majesty said that it was Haman's job. Let him do something himself. The king asked not to talk to him until tomorrow and prepared 10 ideas to win. Zeke Haman tried to somehow object, but the guards called out to him. They said that the owl was too cold to fly, and they had lost contact with all the stations. The guard salamanders had gone into hibernation, and the gatekeeper monster was throwing a tantrum because of the cold. In addition, they reported that the hill in front of the main gate was slippery to climb, a water pipe had burst, and many other problems had occurred. The minister angrily asked how it came to this. At this time, Zeke finished examining the girl lying in bed with a cold. He said that we needed to see how the illness passed overnight and promising to return the next day. He wished the girl good night. When leaving, he told her mother that he wanted to vaccinate the girl and asked her to prepare her for this. Mom thanked the doctor, stretching. Zeke decided that the work could be finished. Tai happily said that now the 3 of us can have a walk day. Kai-chan, who was standing nearby, objected that she should be the one on a date with Zeke as the friends climbed onto Kai-chan and set off. Tai declared that they would have fun. Kai-chan said that she was too attached to Zeke and wanted to throw her off her back. The young man asked them to stop quarreling. Zeke thought that he was having fun at his usual pace. Compared to the past, it was much calmer here. Tai turned her head to the side and thought about something. Zeke asked her what was wrong. She said she smelled blood. The hero stopped and got off Kai-chan's back. In front of them lay a huge bloody monster that looked like a dragon. There were large holes in his body. Zeke noticed that he was in a lot of trouble. Tai asked if the monster was dead. The doctor replied that he was still alive. He heard a voice in his head, the monster asking if Zeke was a human or an elf friend. The young man told him his name and said that he did not know any elves. The monster was surprised that Zeke could hear his voice. The vet said it sounded weird. Kai-chan asked what was going on with Zeke. She replied that he was talking to the dragon. The monster said that he was very surprised because for the first time since birth, he saw a person who could talk to creatures like him. Zeke said that they would talk about it later, but for now the doctor would deal with the dragon's wounds. The monster asked if a person could heal a dragon. Zeke answered in the affirmative. He said that even dragons require first aid in such a situation. The dragon said that he would need time to regenerate and asked the doctor why. He wanted to help him. Zeke explained that he was a doctor and the dragon was injured. He didn't need any more reasons, the monster thought. In the end, he agreed to the doctor's help. Zeke was happy about this and decided to start treatment. He told Kai-chan that there must be a stream nearby, but he was interrupted by someone screaming. A long-haired elf in hunting gear asked what Zeke forgot in this place. He said that this diamond dragon was the prey of Master Elkus. Zeke, ignoring the elf, asked Tai to collect as many leaves from the trees as possible. Elkus was unhappy that the young man was ignoring him. The doctor told him that if he was just resting here, he should leave and not interface with Zeke's treatment of the dragon. The elf said and raised that the dragon slayer Elkus should not be treated this way. He took out a bow and arrow and aimed it at Zeke, saying that he deserved to die. The dragon asked the young man to run away because his arrows pierce even diamond scales. Elkus shot an arrow with Zeke, but he caught it with one hand. The elf did not understand how this could happen. The doctor threw the arrow on the ground as it was hot and almost burned him. Elkus opened his mouth in surprise. Elf shouted that this couldn't happen and asked who Zeke was. The young man replied that he was a veterinarian and was going to treat the dragon. Elkus told Zeke not to lie to him. He raised his bow and shot many arrows, saying that the young man would not see anything through them. The dragon told the heroes to run away because they are all in danger. Tai and Kai-chan looked in amazement at the hail of arrows. Zeke said that Elkus was annoying and in one fell swoop, he deflected the arrows to the side. The doctor asked if the elf was ready to calm down and finally become quiet. Elkus was angry and said that he remembered Zeke's face and his name. After these words, the elf disappeared. Zeke noted that it was transference magic again, which was not such a simple spell. He was surprised that anyone had access to it. The dragon said with confidence that Elkus was no match for Zeke. The doctor said that when it comes to some troublemakers, he has no remorse in dealing with them quickly. The young man asked the dragon to lie still while he treated him. After a little while, Tai approached Zeke and asked him how the treatment was going. The doctor said that he was just looking at what could be done. He thought to himself that this was hard because he felt that once the superficial wounds were treated, the dragon's healing abilities would take care of the rest. He also reflected that even if he used his skills, healing would be extremely slow. Examining the huge wound in the dragon's body, the young man suggested that Elkus had mixed some kind of witchcraft into his arrows. The dragon told Zeke that he knew many dragon slayers, but he had never seen anyone try to heal a dragon. The doctor asked him to be quiet and leave the work to the doctors. The monster said that Zeke is trying to heal him with human powers, but this is clearly not enough. He also asked if there was something else he could do, and if the vet was checking it out. Zeke replied that he is always honest with his patients and apologized for the fact that his strength may not be enough. The dragon said that the doctor would need sacred energy. It should be enough to enhance the magic. The young man said that this was the first time he had heard about sacred energy. The dragon explained that this was powerful magic. He asked if he could use his healing magic. The doctor replied that healing magic is easier said than done. Kai-chan asked him if he didn't already have such magic. The young man replied that his skill was helping patients heal themselves. He explained that healing magic is completely different. He reverses providence and returns patients to normal life, and he has not even mastered what men told him. The dragon said that Zeke can still heal because such powerful energy bubbles inside him, and this is not a coincidence, but his path the accumulation of many healings. Zeke asked how the dragon knew so much. He replied that he understood this from Zeke's spirit in his hands. Looking at his hand, the doctor saw it to the hero decided to check his savings. He extended his hands to the dragon's wound, closed his eyes and concentrated. A moment later, his eyes opened. The place where the dragon lay was illuminated by a bright flash of light. Zeke fell to the ground with his arms still outstretched, while Kai and Kai-chan stood in amazement. A dragon appeared before them, no longer showing any visible damage. Kai-chan said that although it didn't turn out perfectly, the wounds healed. Zeke couldn't believe he actually did it. Tai, looking into the void, said that Zeke, veterinary with the title Dragon Healer, the unique skill Hand of God, has evolved into the doctor of 100 beasts. Zeke called out to her and she said that the young man had done well. The doctor told her that sometimes she acts scary. The veterinarian was glad that the dragon was fine. The monster thanked Zeke for his strength and salvation. The doctor said he was just doing what he had to do. Suddenly he began to lose consciousness. Kai-chan and Tai started calling his name in fear, not understanding what had happened to him. After some time, the sun was shining brightly in the sky. Zeke opened his eyes and Saturday up on the bed. He realized that he had recently fainted. The young man did not remember what happened after that. The last thing he remembered was how the crazy elf escaped, and he was healing the diamond dragon. Zeke rubbed his eyes with one hand and felt something soft on the bed with the other. A girl with horns on her head was sleeping in the bed next to him. She was lying without clothes, and Zeke's hand was touching her breasts. The young man had some questions. The girl woke up and wished Zeke good morning. She was glad he was okay because she and the others had been worried when he suddenly lost consciousness. The girl licked the boy's cheek while he tried to find out who she was. Man came into the bedroom and asked her brother how he was feeling. When she saw the girl in Zeke's bed, she got angry and said that this country is dangerous, not only because of Tiffany. She wanted to cover everything with ice. Zeke told her that she had it all wrong. In fact, the hero did not know this horn. Girl looking at her again, he realized that it was Kai-chan. She asked if Zeke had forgotten her face. The young man held a mirror to her face, and she screaming asked who this girl was. Queen Sophia entered the room and said that she was ready to explain everything. Everyone turned around and looked at her. After some time, the heroes were sitting in Zeke's bedroom. Sophia said that Kai-chan took on a human form due to the evolutionary power of the young man. Man asked about the evolutionary force. Zeke remembered Tai talking about something like that. The queen asked those present if they knew about the existence of monster evolution. Men said that this is a phenomenon where a monster evolves to a higher level by hunting other powerful monsters. Zeke noted that Kai-chan did not eat monsters. Sophia explained that monsters consume energy through food, or rather the magical power of the target, and when a large magical force enters the body, natural evolution can occur. Men deduced that her brother's magical power was causing evolution. Zeke remembered what the dragon had said about this. The hero then asked why he had such magical powers. The queen said it was because of the contract with Tiffany. Sophia said that by making a pact with the divine beast, Zeke received divine energy, and his recent encounter with the dragon must have strengthened it. Suddenly, men realized that this was due to the power of veterinary. The queen asked what it was. Men explained that the veterinary clan can use the power of the monsters dependent on it as their own. With the power of a god and the power of a dragon, Zeke underwent an existential evolution. Sophia asked if men had changed because of this. The sister, in simple words, told her uncomprehending brother that he had become the strongest user of healing magic, endowed with the power of a god. Zeke didn't believe him right away. He thought that with healing magic, the miraculous power that heals everything, the doctor could heal people, beasts, and monsters alike. He realized that he received this power as a result of his path clenching his hand into a fist. Zeke confidently said that this was the inevitable result of his meetings with everyone, and he would use the force at his discretion. Everyone didn't mind. Tai-chan looked happy. Zeke asked what was the matter. She, jumping joyfully, replied that the doctor has power made her like this, which means her body is ideal. Physique Myth looked at her annoyed. She said that even though Kai-chan took on a human form, she still had the brains of a lizard, and that her brother was not suited for a body as vulgar as hers, but for a body as modest as hers. Kai-chan was angry that men judged the bodies he gave her. Hai-chan suggested finding out which of them is right in battle. Men noted that she had gained courage. Zeke asked the girls to calm down. The young man asked what kind of games they played, and the queen thought it was fun. Zeke asked her why it was acting strange. Sophia replied that she was an oracle. The queen said the divine beasts have a spiritual connection with the heavens, and Tai's connection is especially strong. She assumed that gods will have passed through her. Zeke realized that everything Tiffany said about the gods was not a metaphor. Sophia confirmed this and said that God was in heaven. The vet admitted he wasn't sure he understood everything after so much information. He asked if it was possible to live as before. The queen said that he must find his way. She added that she would be happy to be with him. Zeke was confused. The queen thanked him for his respect, but said that at the moment she was not the queen, but simply Sophia. She asked to be allowed to watch Zeke on his adventures, hugging the young man's hand. Sophia asked if she would interface, so he couldn't find the right words at this time to enter the room and wish Zeke good morning. She was glad that he was already awake. The girl saw that her mother was also in the room and asked if she was worried about the boy. She answered positively. Meanwhile, in a place where the towers rose against the background of the forest, Elkis was shouting. He cursed Zeke and ordered troops to be gathered as he wanted to attack the land where the veterinarian was located as soon as possible. Elkis' subordinate told him that even he thought the Beastmen were not to blame. Elkis became angry at the words of the subordinate elf. The half-naked Elkis, overcome by madness, set his subordinate on fire and shouted that no one dare insult him, and expressed his readiness to destroy Zeke's supporters completely. At some time, a crowd of elves led by Elkis stood in front of the entrance to Narada. The leader shouted for the inhabitants of Nicaragua to come out and declared that he would destroy their country. The guards standing at the gate asked the elves what they were doing here. He asked if they had come to see the sights of the village. Elkis laughed and cut off the guard's head. He called the people of the country losers and said that he would destroy Nicaragua in 2 days. The elf continued to laugh like crazy. He turned to his subordinates, but at that moment, the guard stood up and asked what Elkis had done. The elf looked at him in bewilderment and asked how it was possible how his neck healed. Before the guard could answer, one of the elves jumped into the air with a weapon in his hands, about to strike him again. The guard covered his head with his hands and closed his eyes. Suddenly, his body began to emit a bright light. This light hit the elf and tore him into pieces. Elkis was shocked by what he saw. One of his subordinates told him that the light had surrounded the village, so they could not go any further. Looking up, Elk saw that it was true and cursed Zeke again. Elkis noted that the village had been fortified with magic in anticipation of his arrival and called it a smart move. The guard said that Zeke was on a routine inspection of this place yesterday. It turned out that whoever Zeke healed would be blessed with life for a while. Elkis' subordinates told him that they could not break through such a shield. They had to retreat. Elkis stated that the Dragon Slayer hero does not give up easily. He summoned a huge terrifying winged demon with horns. Baphomet. Elkis was sure that this way they would cut their way through. He wanted to use an SS rank demonic beast to destroy the barrier and everything in its path. But suddenly he turned around and a moment later flew into the air. Elkis said that automatic revival and interception magics are very powerful magics, and he will have to go back and come up with a plan. Suddenly, Elkis hit a magical barrier and fell to the ground. He looked up and saw in front of him a large diamond dragon, which he had recently seriously injured. The dragon greeted an old acquaintance. Hulk is asked if the dragon wanted to fight. He replied that the elf correctly understood his intentions. After becoming acquainted with Zeke's power, the dragon was glad that they didn't destroy Elkis. Last time, the elf assumed that the dragon seemed to have received a favor from Zeke and offered him a rematch. Elkis reached for his magic bow, saying that he would defeat the dragon, but suddenly his hands were not there. The elf screamed in horror when he saw the hands lying on the ground. The dragon said that he would no longer be able to hold the bow and asked how he would pierce the scales. The wounded elf did not know whether to cry or laugh and said that it could use healing magic. He noted that such injuries mean nothing to him. He strained with all his might trying to heal himself, but the magic didn't work. The dragon told him that miracles of healing were performed through divine power. The dragon said that it was natural that the elf lost his blessing because he attacked Zeke, the messenger of God. Elkus didn't understand what the dragon was talking about, but suddenly he saw giant black dragons that were several times larger than the diamond dragon. The diamond dragon explained to the elf that it had stepped on the god's tail. With tears in his eyes and a frightened face, Elkus begged for forgiveness. A moment later, his muffled scream was heard. Sometime later, Zeke read a news story in the newspaper about how a group of elves on a sightseeing tour suffered losses due to a mysterious phenomenon. He said that he would have to ask them to increase patrols. T walked up to him and noticed that he was working again. She asked if he thought he needed to rest. Zeke said he wasn't working, just reading the reports. Tai noted that this is also work. She took the newspaper from her and ordered her to rest if it as complained it was forced to forfeit a week's pay after his secretary criticized him for exercising. He said he was very bored from day one. Kai Chang, who was passing by, heard this. She said she never thought she would hear such words from Zeke's mouth. Kai Chan was glad that he had someone to guide him. The young man said that he would like to have such a wife. Kai Chan began to read diligently about how to control a man. A little later, Tai told Zeke that they had recently found a cave on the border. She invited everyone to go there and explore it together. A dungeon is a large labyrinth in the underground world. It is the source of the magical element in the atmosphere, and is also the source of magical power. When it is deep underground, it forms a core, and thus a dungeon is created. The dungeon can be compared to a living creature that has no ego, but has an ardent desire to devour people. It creates monsters, traps, and evil magic. If they are not controlled, they will not remain in the dungeon but will invade. The outside world knows why the dungeons exist, but adventurers from all over the world descend deep underground to eliminate the threat. In the dungeon, the girl fought with a large one-eyed monster. Her sword passed through his shoulder to his stomach, and the monster fell to the ground. The rest of the monsters were already dead. The team the girl came with could relax a little. The girl asked her companions to report on the situation. They said everything was fine, but the man covering the short girl was hurt. He said that this is his job because he is a tank. The girl said that he should not have exposed himself like that. The young man approached the female leader, who had recently killed the monster, and apologized for his mistake in disarming the trap. The leader said it wasn't all his fault. The short girl said that the whole dungeon has a disgusting atmosphere. It's not half as bad as it could be. The man in the cloak suggested retreating because the cave was full of glass monsters, but the leader was against it. She said that it would be disobedience to the royal order. They would lose the confidence of the prime minister, and this would be disastrous for their party. The leader ordered her comrades to change roles. She decided that she would tank and the others would cover the rear guard. The short girl warned that she could feel the magic being activated and asked everyone to be careful. Suddenly, the team was surrounded by a huge crowd of monsters of different types. Everyone realized that they would have to start all over again. The leader ordered the battle to begin. At this time, Zeke and Kai Chan, at the full speed of the wave of lava that caught them, flew into a wall of bricks, making a large hole in it. When they landed, they laughed because it was fun. Zeke said the situation seemed dire, and he was even a little nervous. He noted that the place was fun and had a lot of rides. She assumed it was an amusement park. Kai Chan, seeing someone's skull on the ground, asked if the guys were sure that the cave was safe. Tai said that here you could fall into the lava, get hit, and everything would be fine. Zeke wondered how it all worked. Tai pointed forward and happily said that there were monsters there. In front of the friend stood a huge monster that looked like a bull. T said it was almost like the real thing. Zeke said it was stupid to be afraid of such things. Suddenly, the bull spoke. He hit the place where Tai was standing with a huge hammer. Kai Chan was very scared, but Zeke reassured her that it was just an attraction. The bull raised the hammer, and in the indentation from the blow lay a laughing Tai. She said the bull scared her. Kai stood up and noticed that the monster was injured. Zeke asked if it was special makeup. The doctor touched the monster's wound and told him that he was a doctor and could fix such things instantly. Zeke asked the bull to let him look at his wounds. The veterinarian, still holding his hand on the monster's wound, cast the healing skill. The bull was in shock. Zeke told him that after examining him, he cast a healing spell on the monster, his entire body, so that it would be healed of all other ailments. T noted that it was cool. Suddenly, the monster thanked Zeke for waking him up. He asked the guys for help because there were many of his comrades who had fallen into the trap of the curse. Meanwhile, the team led by the leader fought the monsters. The short girl and the leader were covered by a man who had previously been a tank and came under attack. The girl asked the man who had fallen to the ground what he was doing. He said that like a tank you would not allow her to be wounded. The short girl told the leader that he was fine but was already breathing heavily and bleeding. The leader said that on the other side there was a pointer to the dungeon core. The small girl thought that they should go that way. The leader asked how much magic the team had left to attack. Her companions responded that it was 20% of the Saba's magic or 30% if they used the latest restorative agents. Hearing this, the leader said that when she gave the signal, her companions should fire everything they had at the front line. The young man on the team said that if they just shoot at the opponents, they will choose evasive tactics. The leader ordered to get rid of the enemies, and she would buy them time. She told her companions to head in the opposite direction and scatter the enemy, and she would rush as fast as she could. And then together they would destroy the core. The blonde boy asked if she thought a happy ending for everyone was real. He thought it was funny. The leader said that it was her fault, that she misjudged the difficulty of the dungeon, which put them all in danger, so she should take responsibility. Another young man with sidebands said that she again didn't think through the plan to blow up the wall. He added that if she could complete the dungeon with this strategy, she would have no problem. We're over. She does not even know the attributes of the cannonball, such as the quality of the gunpowder, the strength of the wall, the strength of the impact on the terrain. Although the leader was furious that the guy noticed the flaws in her plan, she was grateful for the support from her companions. They were confident that they would cope with everything and return alive. Suddenly, the wall behind the team exploded, causing them to be amazed. Through the resulting hole in the wall, they saw Zeke with his friends in the bowl. The recently fighting team did not understand who it was and what they were doing in this place. Zeke said that he was just the doctor passing by.